Hi, I'm Kenneth WAJDA. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my photography talks. So today I want to talk about looking for things that already happened but are no longer there, but there's evidence of them. This is an interesting challenge to look for photographs that tell stories. I have a photograph of a liquor bottle sitting in some pretty light in Washington, D.C. on a sidewalk. There's a story there. The person is long gone, the liquor is long gone, but there's a story there of what transpired to bring that bottle to that spot. And I'll put a photo in the links below. Here's another photo from Washington. I was working a photo shoot, and before the shoot I went out and took a walk, and it was pouring rain, and this is a bench with a blanket in the outline of a man, and I'll put a link below. And that photograph was so captivating to me. There was somebody who was huddled on that bench under that blanket trying to stay warm in the rain and finally got up and left. And the blanket still holds their shape. I find those photographs so almost endearing and also so difficult to look at. There's something very human about that photograph, and also something really heartbreaking to watch and know that somebody was struggling in such a difficult condition. So those kind of photographs are what I would call, they're found objects or found scenarios that tell you a little bit about something that happened. I have another one. It's just a pair of pants turned inside out, lying on the sidewalk. It looks like somebody may have just stepped out of them. And the question is, who? Why are they there? And why are they, what was the story of what happened to bring that pair of pants, the pair of blue jeans, to that spot at that moment? So I look for stories in the things that I find. Sometimes when I'm not photographing a person, somebody doing something, sometimes I'll find evidence of something that had been there. I guess it's a little detail. It's a little observation. Just like I talk about observing the things around you, and what you're looking for is stories. Sometimes those stories can be in the small spaces. Sometimes they can be in the one area of a bench or a sidewalk that just, you wonder, what was the story that brought this to here? And again, that's an interesting documentary project. It's one for if you're feeling shy and like you don't want to put the camera in people's faces. You certainly can shoot those, because those tend to be objects that don't have people in them. But there is a story to those, and there is something about creating and seeing those, because it develops your eye. It makes it so that you're very aware. Again, as storytellers, we're looking for photographs that tell stories, and I think that these photographs all do. It's certainly a different way of looking, and it's something you can do even in the areas where there aren't a lot of people. If you're walking down a back street or a side street that doesn't have anybody walking on it, look for objects that might have a little storytelling element to them that you can use for a photograph. Because you can still use composition, you can still create an image from that object, and it doesn't mean that you don't get to use photography techniques. Certainly you do. But there is a little story in these elements, and photographers from all time, I'm sure, have photographed things like this because they're just so interesting. The story of what happened. It's kind of like the leftovers, maybe, and sometimes they can be heartbreaking when you see that soaking wet wool blanket in the rain on the bench, and sometimes they're maybe funny. Sometimes they're maybe perplexing. I have one that's perplexing. It's a half of a cue ball sitting on a crosswalk signal button. It's like, how did that end up there? Where did it break, and how did it get taken out into public and placed on that crosswalk button? Interesting. I can think of another one where, I'll put all these in the links. I can think of another one where there's a large can of tomatoes I think, crushed tomatoes, except for the can's empty. And it's sitting on the base of a payphone. Who brought that out to the payphone? And who uses payphones? There's a story right in and of itself. Photographing the leftovers, the payphones that are still standing. I'm told that as they break, they're not replaced. That's typically how payphones go by the wayside. And there are independent contractors who maintain them and get the money from them. But once they break, they're not worth it. And that's how you start seeing less and less and less of them. But anyway, those objects tell stories, and they're all part of the human story that we're documenting. So keep an eye out. If you have any examples, put them in the links below. I'd love to see them. And thanks everybody who's have been posting some photographs for me to talk about and see. I appreciate that, and I like watching those. Those are fun to see come in. And if I can answer any questions, please put those in the comments. I'll certainly get to those. And thanks so much for watching. That's today's Photography Talk. If you're enjoying these, hit the subscribe button. If you can support, hit the Patreon, and I'll bring you more photography talks. All right, thanks so much. Here's the good light.